Well, it's a good evening. I was going to do two Ronnies tonight, but I got lost for words. So anyway, naturally enough, it's Radio FM88 Australia. You are listening to Dream the New Dream. And as we know, I'm with the Southern Hemisphere and now co-host is in the Northern Hemisphere. So it makes it appropriate for her to sit at the top of the totem pole, and our guest is in the middle there, and lo and behold, she's from Queensland, but I'll let Andrena do the introductions.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Dreaming the New Dream, and especially if you're a new listener or if you're listening to the replay. So every week we have a lovely guest sharing their visions of dreaming the new dream. And this week it's my great pleasure to have Diana Hunter on. So welcome, Diana. It's lovely to have you on the show.
Thank you, Andrena and Jeffrey. Lovely to be here.
And I know you've written a book, which we'll come to further down the track, but we're going to talk about our intuition today as a starting post. So what was the steps that led you to working with intuition and then like being a coach and helping and guiding people? How did it all start for you?
Okay, well, I guess the journey started when I was about 21, and I was in a very responsible job and quite a lot of stress. And a colleague of mine had suggested I study meditation as a form of stress release. And prior to this, I'd done no personal development at all. I'd never thought about intuition. And so this was my first adventure into something alternative. And so I went along and learnt transcendental meditation and studied that and practiced that for about 5 years. And I guess that what that did was it helped me integrate the capacity to just be and listen. And of course, that's a real key to our intuitive capacities, to be able to just be. That led me on to study a spiritual textbook called A Course in Miracles. Have you heard of it?
Mm.
Yeah. So for those that haven't, A Course in Miracles is a spiritual text. It's channeled information from spirit, and it also incorporates daily meditations, a meditation for 365 days of the year. But it was my first introduction into that we're all reflections of each other, and also into taking responsibility for our experiences in our life and for our relationships, and also the concept of inviting spirit into our life and relationships. And again, for the intuitive process, and we can go further into that through our conversation, but having that connection with a higher power is very much, however you relate to that, is very much part of assist with intuitive enhancement. Then I went on to, through that community, I heard about a personal development process called rebirthing. It's now called Breathwork. Mm. And I just had an intuitive feeling that would be something for me to explore, which I did for several years. And rebirthing is a breathing process that you do lying down under the supervision of a coach. And what it does is it lifts the lid on the psyche. It gives you access to your subconscious, your unconscious beliefs, thoughts, life patterns, emotions that may be, stuck there due to past life traumas. And also, in my experience, it helps us have that sense, that feeling sense of connection with spirit. And so, again, that started to evolve me in my being more and more emotionally present, if you like. Mm. And the more emotionally present we can become, the more we can be connected with intuitive guidance that moves through us in that way. So then, so as you can hear, my process of connecting with my intuition was an evolutionary process. And our intuition isn't an overnight sensation. It is something that involves and deepens and strengthens in time. And so when I completed with the rebirthing study, I went into very deep, and this was popular in the 80s. It's not so, well, I'm not aware of it being popular now. I'm not sure we even need this so much in this phase of our evolution, but we were into deep emotional express and release work, beating pillows, hand screams, moving the energy, anything you could do to move the energy in your body and get more present emotionally. And what happened there is I went from having understandings and concepts in my mind to actually being able to feel them as truth in the cells of my body. And it was around that time that my intuition started to rapidly develop. I'd know things beyond what I could logically figure out. I would know things ahead of time. I was feeling guided purposefully in my life. And I realized that the more present we become emotionally, the deeper and more clarity we have with our intuition. So I also knew at that point that I was going to be able to apply the personal development skills that I'd learned up to that point and focus it into developing my intuition, because I thought, I want this skill on board. I want to be able to be purposefully guided in my life. And so it evolved further from there. And, so our intuition will evolve, will deepen, will strengthen the more we focus on it. And that's what I guess I'm passionate about, teaching people how to embrace that aspect of their life.
Yeah, because our intuition is our inner guidance. I mean, or your inner sat nav. It's what's guiding you. And some people say it's your higher power, it's your higher self, or it's your guides, or there's lots of different names for your intuition, but it's your own inner guidance at the end of the day. And I think, and it's really, or your gut feeling, that's another one. People say, I had that gut feeling, or that knowing, or or suddenly you get a dread feeling and something's not right. And it's really taking the time to listen it's taking the time to be still, isn't it, really? Because at the moment, the planet and all what energy wise and all what's going on is really speeding up. And we know on a level that we've all signed up to be here at this time of this massive change, even though some of us say there's no way I would have signed up for this, and I would have said it myself. But we are all here to help one another and lift our vibrations. So as I see it now, with all the things going on, and when you hear people saying, I'm really angry at this, and to me it's like, you have to deal with your own inner feelings, your own anger, your own inner rage, because if you get that right, then you're rippling out on a different vibration, if you like, or a different frequency. And if more and more people recognize that people are triggers and we're all helping each other, you're bringing something up within me and you react, and then you think, oh no, sorry, this is my stuff. But we really need to focus on what's going on within us and around us. Is reflecting back to us, don't we?
Yeah,
in a
absolutely.
nutshell.
Yeah. Well, you covered a lot of subjects there in that comments and questions. But yes, what you're talking about there is, as what I said about us all being reflections of each other. What you also spoke about there was, I've forgotten now, was it about the creative energy? Oh, yeah, that's right. You were saying about our intuition coming from the creative place. And that's right. Our intuition doesn't come from our logical mind. Our logical mind has a very important place in the intuitive process, but it doesn't come from our logical mind. Our intuition comes from our greater consciousness. It's creative energy moving through us in, a variety of forms, and moving us towards particular choices or directions or inspirations. And then it requires our logical mind to be on board, to back us up and take some action. on that. But very much our intuition emanates from that part of us that knows everything about us, past, present, and future, and is powerfully and potently guiding our life.
Because I know there's times things happen and you think, how did I create this? You know, how did this happen? Or why did, you know, this doesn't make sense to me. But then when you look back, you can sometimes think, okay, I can see why that happened, because that's brought up another trigger or something deep that you needed to look at or release.
Yes, it's like connecting the dots in retrospect. We can see how it all fits together. Yep. Yeah.
So, so with like, what would you say to people? What would be the best tip to help them get more in touch with their intuition? Because like I said, everything's busy. And I know for myself in the past, I'll sit there for a while and I think I've been sat there for 10, 15 minutes. And I've only been sat there for a few minutes. And then I think, oh, that's it. That's me. That's my meditation done. But I know for me, a lot of the time is just looking out at nature and is like an open-eyed meditation, if you like. So, and it's just following your prompts, I suppose, and it's the best way to say it. And but I know that it really is making the time for yourself now more than ever to just sit and, you know, like even if people put on a timer for 5 minutes and just worked on their breath, because that's the most powerful tool, you know, as I sit, you know, well, if you haven't got your breath, you're not here, are you?
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, so what tips would you get for people to taking the time out to be still and just, would you say like just focus on, because there's different forms of breathing, isn't there? There's like, some say count to 4, hold to 4, some say only in through your nose and out through your nose, and others say, you know, this. So what would be your guidance on?
Well, not everyone is a meditator, right?
No.
Some people are. I'm a good meditator, and it's part of my way of just being present and getting present and tuning in. But it's not everybody's way. Some people, their intuition comes to them when they're distracted from the subject and when they get their mind on to something else, and then the inspiration just flicks through in their mind and it's right there. And some of the, you know, the greatest inventions on the planet have come that way. The scientists, when they're just focusing their logical mind into the subject and trial and error, and the answer's not coming, so they go away. And, you know, like you say, you could go out in nature or in a dream state, or as they're just waking up, when you're in that phase between of shift of consciousness, when you're going to sleep or waking up, the answer can come. You know, it just comes, inspiration comes in. So for everybody, our intuition, you know, comes in a variety of ways. And I cover a whole range of aspects of the intuitive process and ways to develop our intuition in my book. But I could share with you, and there it is. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Yeah, nice color. I like the color blue, one of my colors. So
thank you. I called my book An Intuitive Life because, you know, when our intuition speaks to us and we listen to it and we follow it, and then some grand design or something exciting evolves as a result, it's fantastic. And I love that when it happens. And I want to support people to have more of those moments in their life. But what's also close to my heart is having our intuition as part of our everyday life. And that's why I called it An Intuitive Life, to, you know, be in tune with the nuances that are there. So it creates more ease, more flow, being in receipt of synchronicities, being in the right place at the right time, allowing creative inspiration to move through us. And so that was the purpose of my book. But I could give you some foundational steps that I think would help everyone in terms of developing their intuition, if you like.
Yeah, that would be great. Because, you know, like, you know, there might be people that really haven't sat quiet or thought about meditating, or it's been in their back burner, if you like, and they think, oh, yeah, okay, what do I need to do? Because there's, like I said, there's so many different options out there to do meditation or breath work.
Yeah. Well, I'm a bit of a practical girl. So I'll give you the initial practical steps. So the first step, if you're wanting to deepen or develop the intuition that you already have, doesn't matter where you are on that continuum, that timeline of intuitive development. The step is to use your intention. So intention is one of the most potent and powerful personal development tools we have. It's like putting a laser beam of focus into an area of our life that we're wanting to expand or develop or shift and change. And so we can apply our intention into the subject of deepening our intuition. And so this is one of the things that I mentioned earlier. I could see how I could apply personal development tools to developing my intuition. I already knew about intent, and I knew I could apply my intent to develop my intuition. So with intent, it's really just making a statement out loud, I think, is more potent, not so the universe can hear you, but just so your own psyche can hear. And also you're putting your intent into physical form through the vibration of your spoken word, and it's your psyche that hears it. And so just using a simple statement like, with heartfelt presence, okay, what I call pure intent that's coming from your heart, that's a spiritual intent, if you like. I intend to connect more deeply with my intuition. I intend to be more in touch with my innate guidance system. And I outline a whole range of other statements that you could use in my book. And I also like to tag in the statement or the intent. I'm intending for the presence of being and the courage to recognize the signs and take action on them. Because often when we hear the signs, we might, question them or judge them or be fearful of taking action. And so, to also use your intent to be able to hone the recognition. Ask your intuition or your innate consciousness to help you recognize your intuition when it speaks to you. So that's one key point, using your intuition. And you can use your intent anytime along that continuum. So as I've progressed with the development of my intuition, I've just thought intuitively, I can go deeper. There's more here, and I'll use my intent to go deeper. And I'll still do that now because we're in an evolutionary phase of the consciousness of humanity, and more is becoming available to us. So if we've got an intuitive feeling that there's more, to trust that and ask for more to come through. Does that make sense, Andrena?
Yeah, totally.
The other foundational thing to understand about intuition is that the relationship between our intuition and our logic. As I said earlier, our logical mind is not where our intuition comes from. It comes from that greater consciousness. However, when they're working together, when our intuition and our logical mind are working together, they become a very powerful creative force together. And I'll just give you one example out of my book. There's a story of a woman there who had moved to a new city, and she was renting in the unit that she was accommodated in. And then that unit came up for sale, and she had this immediate intuitive hit, I'm going to buy it. So that's the intuition part. Then she went about crunching the numbers, right? She did her research. Right. So she brought her logical mind and her intuition into relationship to each other, and it all was aligned, and she bought the unit, and it had so many features that were supportive of her life for the next 15 to 20 years. I can also give you, if you like, an example out of my own life recently, because it has a few aspects of that interplay between our intuition and our logic. So I launched the paperback of my book in March, and it had been the culmination of a 10-year project, and I was tired. I wanted a break after that. So I took a couple of months off. I trusted my intuition there and took a couple of months off. And then there'd been something I've been wanting to study spiritually in the spiritual realm for a few years, but I hadn't had time because I was focused on the book. So I did that study. And then I've come to the last quarter of the year. And I'm thinking, what do I want to achieve in this last quarter of the year? And my logical mind was saying, I could run my 5-week intuitive mastery program. There's time to do that. But what I noticed was I didn't have fire in the belly for it. I had resistance in my emotional body. And I know that resistance is an intuitive sign. So our resistance can be a mild form of no. I'm not, either it's not right timing, or it's not on track in this moment. And so I thought, okay, well, my intuition and my logic are not aligned here. I'll do a fact check. I thought I'll check with friends of mine who are astrologers and see how my astrology is lining up over the next quarter. And so when I consulted with them, they told me that the astrology was showing that I was better off doing small projects than big projects over these next few months, the way the planets and the transits were. So I thought, well, there you are. We've got some logical information through research into my astrology, backing up my intuition, saying, no, I don't want to take on this bigger project over the next few months. Does this make sense so far?
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Yep.
I'm with you every step of the way here.
Okay. And so then I thought, well, I'll give it a few days and I'll think about what else I might do in this last quarter, because I tend to be a bit goal orientated. I like to, kick those goals. And I started to remember that I'd had this intuitive inspiration, this creative inspiration, to run a 2 to 3 hour workshop focused on how to deepen the relationship with our angels, with the beings of light that support us in our work and our journey here. And I've taught about angels before, about 25 years ago, but I haven't done a standalone for quite a few years now. And I noticed in thinking about that, I felt inspired. I felt excited. And so my logic about thinking about this idea and my emotional state were in alignment. So I knew that I was on track. And so I stepped forward into the idea. I pushed on the door. And the doors flung open. Things started to flow. Synchronicities started to happen. And there's tremendous support and a lot of interest and enrollment in that program. So that's another sign, intuitive signs, when, we step forward into things and they flow. It's a sign that, the universe, that we're in alignment there. So that's the, I hope that's helpful example about logic and intuition. And the other foundational step that I would suggest is to what I call gather evidence. Look out for evidence in your world where your intuition is actually talking to you, giving you signs, giving you guidance, and give it thanks. Recognize it. Say thank you. One of the ways of noticing is to do daily gratitude, where you're grateful for everything that's happened in the day, and then you'll start to notice where your intuition's been guiding you and be able to acknowledge that, because our intuition is like our best friend, I think. The more love, focus, time, acknowledgement, recognition that you give your intuition, the deeper that relationship becomes and the more conscious that relationship becomes.
Yeah, no, I totally, I did have a question, but it's popped out a minute. But yeah, talking of angels, I mean, that's another sort of subject in itself, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, I mean, I love anything to do with angels. And before I left Australia, I had angels everywhere. And I decided that I'll have to take the energetics of the angels over with me, as opposed to all these different ornaments. And then when I've gone to different friends' houses, I've seen like an angel statue in the garden or something. So yeah, angels for me play a big part, working with the masters and calling them in and asking for help and guidance. So I think going back to the intuition, it's easy to ignore the little subtle messages or things until you suddenly get something comes up out of the blue a bit faster, and you think, oh my God, you get a prompting or you get a feeling, but it's so slight, I suppose I can say, or so it's not like somebody says, oh, turn left, and if you go down that way, you will meet so and so, or if, you know, like I'm looking for a place to live in Glastonbury or the surrounding area. And I thought, well, I have to show the universe I'm taking action. So, you know, I've been to look at a couple of places that haven't been suitable. But then I've spoken to, I don't know how many people going up and down the high street to say, look, this is what I'm looking for. I want to do my sound, my voice work, la, 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 la. And so it was like, right, get the message out, what you're looking for. So it was like going up and down and going, if you know of blah, blah, blah. So I think, right, okay, well, I've put it out to the universe now. This is what I'm asking for. And just handing it over and waiting to see how I'm prompted to move forward, or, you know, somebody's ring me up and say, oh, so-and-so's got something, what do you think? Or, but is like, again, you've got to be in that sort of quieter space to put out what you want, and then let it go. Because they say it's like when you order from the catalogue, isn't it? You know, you put your order in, but you don't keep ringing up and saying, where's my order? When's it coming? What day will it be? What time? And I think that's been a lesson for me, is to sit back and allow things to happen at their time and not my time. Because like I said to you earlier, I've put out, I'd like to be out by September and doing my work. And now we're coming up to the end of October. And then I said Halloween. Well, Halloween's next week. So anyway, I'm open to the highest and best possible outcome.
Yeah, right.
So it's, you know, when you get that feeling to do things, I suppose it's like that, it's opening up and you feel, you know, like there's different things I'm doing, taking, that have made such a difference that I want to share. And I think, well, you know, I'm on a beautiful place and on a farm. I absolutely love it, but I know I need to be nearer my soul tribe to do the things that I want to do now. So so where am I going with all that? I'm waffling on.
I can make some comments about all that. We cover a lot of ground, Andrena.
Yeah, I know.
Go, which point am I going to pick up on there?
Yeah, which one would you like to go for today?
But she didn't tell you. She didn't tell you that she got booted up the bum with a car accident.
Oh, okay.
The car come and got her.
Yeah.
No,
well,
as the universe saying, get on with it.
Yeah, no, and I suppose, because I mean, I did think I was coming back from Glastonbury on my way back here, and I was stationary waiting. There was a couple of cars waiting to turn right, and I was in a queue and sat there quite happily. The next thing, this car come and it rammed me up the back. I mean, and I felt like my head flew off. God. And anyway, the back of my car was smashed, and it pushed me into the car in front. So, you know, looking back, I thought, okay, how in the hell did this happen? Because I was the innocent. I was just sat in a queue of traffic. Then I thought, Christ, maybe the lady behind needed a shake up, because I certainly got one. And then I thought, well, maybe the guy in front needed a boot up the ass as well, because I but looking, I mean, I had a few dark nights of the soul. I could hardly walk. I couldn't, my hips, my neck, and oh my God, I've done all sorts of different things to bring me back into balance now, because that was in March. And I've looked back and I thought, how in the hell did that happen? Like, did I create that? Was that something that I'd put out somewhere along the line? Or was it just one of those things that happen? And yes, it gave me a boot up the ass, a big boot. You know, my car got towed away and all of these things, which I just spent a fortune in MOT bills and, you know, all these things that happen. But I obviously released masses of deep trauma, past lives, who knows, because, you know, obviously it was such a shock to my system. So I suppose for whatever reasons, and I still don't know of every reason, and I suppose I don't need to know, but it happened. And I think now, well, if anybody says to me I was in a whiplash accident or I had whiplash, I know totally what they mean, whereas I had no idea what whiplash was before, but I do now. So I could think, well, what did I do wrong? You know, and go into all this, and I think, well, okay, it happened for a reason, and there's pluses and minuses, but you just have to move on. So so that was quite a shock.
Yeah.
not one I want to repeat, I can tell you.
Yeah. Well, let me step back to some of the things that you've addressed there and see if I can cover them off in regard to the intuitive process. First of all, you said that you had set the intention. You've set the intent that you want to move on to the next phase and you want to move house. You put the radar out there, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is with intuition, and that sometimes, especially the more conscious we become, that we will know things way ahead of time. And then as evolved conscious beings, and I can relate to this, you go, right, I'm away, let's get this job done. But, there's pushback. It's not right timing. The doors aren't opening. The thing hasn't fallen into place yet. So one of the clues there is waiting for the synchronicities. Because if the synchronicities start to flow, then the timing, the universe is giving you a sign of timing. So synchronicities can either affirm that you're on the right track, steer you on the right track, or affirm it's time to take action. The door's open. So all I'm hearing there is you're knowing ahead of time, or possibly what I'm hearing is you're knowing ahead of time where you're going, but the timing hasn't happened yet. In terms of the accident, I think, I think I've said this to you before. One thing that's done is slow you down, right? Yeah. I mean, what if it was just, about slowing down? You haven't done anything wrong, and sometimes, talking earlier about slowing down and being, maybe it's just time for that. You've taken the action, you're putting action out there, and I'm sure the synchronicity is going to flow, just like you said earlier, in perfect divine right timing. The other tip, because we're talking about angels before, and I'd love to talk about them all because it's one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah.
But you can ask for guidance around right timing. Ask your angels to put the synchronicities in place in divine right timing. Ask, and you can also put a posture to the universe saying, if I'm on track here, let that be shown to me. If I'm not on track, let that be shown to me. So these are, they're a cross between an intention and a prayer, really, those kind of statements. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I love life. I love adventures. And when I get the feeling to go to a sacred site or somewhere, once it starts, it gets stronger and stronger. And I think, all right, I'm going off up the tour, or I'm going to Stonehenge. I really feel, so I suppose I just got to wait for that stronger one.
Well, lucky for you, you can go to those beautiful sacred sites.
Oh yeah.
And that's your intuition guiding you to have your feet on the earth in those places. Who knows what you're integrating and taking on as you take your physical body there. And one of the things that I talk about in my book, it's really a guidebook. That's the vision that I had in mind. And so I've broken it down into chapters that covers the various aspects of intuitive development. And then I've anchored or tied those concepts down with women's stories. I actually spent a couple of years interviewing women on their stories of intuition and what happened when they trusted their intuition, what unfolded. And so I've used those stories to tie down the concepts of the intuitive process. And so one of those chapters is about our earth connection. So our soul is intimately connected to the earth. There is what they call an entanglement there. And so connecting with the earth is very much part of the process of supporting enhanced intuition. And so you being, following your feeling, your inspiration to go to those sacred sites, who knows what that's bringing into your consciousness in preparation for the next phase. You're already having this inspiration to do more of your healing work in some form. So maybe this is the perfect preparation. And again, you're going to connect the dots in retrospect, right? When you look back on this phase, you're going to see the brilliance of the universe.
Yeah, well, I'll give you one example. When was it? Probably 3-4 weeks ago now, and I might have shared this with you, I'm not sure, but I've been getting the feeling to go to Cornwall and it was sort of getting stronger, and I looked on the map and it's about almost 4 hours from where I'm living to go, because obviously it's right down the bottom. And anyway, I was talking to my friend Kat in Australia, and she said, oh, Cornwall would be really good for you if you went, the energies down there would be really good. Excuse me. So, and that was Monday. So I was thinking about it, and I thought I've wanted to go to St. Michael's Mount, and I've, it's been in the back burner, so to speak. And then on Tuesday, I thought, and I was sat here and I said, right, Spirit, if I'm to go to Cornwall, then I hand it over to you, because it's a 4-hour trek and I didn't really want to do, because I was still in pain back then. And then on the Wednesday, I was talking to a friend and we were just having a chit chat. And I just happened to say to her, I'm getting the feeling to go to Cornwall, but it's a bit of a trek, so I don't. So she said to me, she said, fantastic. She said, I have a mobile home or a caravan down in Bude. You be my guest. I've done things to help her out. She said, you be my guest. This was Wednesday. So Monday I talked about it. Tuesday I put it out to the universe. Wednesday a friend says I can go. And I was in Bude on the Friday. And that Bude is like, I think it was I've forgotten now, about 2 hours ish from here. And then so from Bude down, and then it was a couple hours. So anyway, I ended up spending more than a week down there. Absolutely loved Bude, explored all around, went to the sacred little places and what have you. And then a friend joined me, and on the following Friday, we went to St. Michael's Mount, and it was Archangel Michael's Day on the Mount, and they were having a ceremony in the chapel because it was Michaelmas Day. And I was thinking, oh my God, I couldn't have planned this if I'd have tried. I didn't even know it was his day, so to speak. And yeah, so the steps that all happened were so fast. So I was so meant to go down there, So
yeah, perfect example of that's a perfect example of what I was saying about pushing on the door and then everything just flows. The synchronicities happen. So it's a real affirmation. That's your right place, right time for now. And it was as I say, and the higher purpose, I was watching you on Facebook. It looked amazing. But also the higher purpose of that, I think will be even clearer down the track.
Yeah, and it's funny because on the picture. Yeah, sorry. And on the Saturday when I had to leave to come back and do the 4 hours to come back, I just cried. I did not want to leave. I just drove back crying for ages. So I must have had a past life or something down there, because it was so strong. And I would love to go back again. I think it's only open November to March. I'm not quite sure. They close sometime in November because obviously the weather, and you have to walk across the walkway. So one way you walk or you get the boat, and then vice versa, because obviously when the tide's out. But it was a spectacular place, and the views all around. Oh my God, it was well worth the visit, and I would love to do it again. So I've put that out as in when I'd like to go back. So I followed my intuition. So I was just thinking, like, for some people, they get a feeling, but they don't follow it through. So what would you say to help people follow their feeling a bit? When you...
Yeah, I think you're kind of edging in there to, what would be the blocks and resistances to following our intuition. So perhaps I can go down that track.
Yeah.
look, there's three main ones that I see, and one would be our self-worth and self-esteem. The other would be our personal history, and I'll explain about that in a minute. And the other would be our Akashic history. So I'll talk more about that.
I was going to ask you to come to that point. Carry on.
Okay. So for us to be able to trust, to recognize and trust and follow, take action on our intuition, we have to have a level of self-love and self-esteem, because sometimes your intuition is going to tell you things that you don't want to hear. You don't want that answer, right? But you know it's your intuition, and so you need to trust it, right? Sometimes your intuition is going to tell you things that is counter to other people's opinion, right? And so you need to have self-esteem and self-worth on board to be able to trust in your own authentic knowing. So it's important to, it's personal development 101, isn't it? That we have to love and appreciate ourselves. But truly, I've actively pursued self-love and self-worth. I'm not there, totally there yet, obviously, but I know the power and the value of choosing to love and appreciate myself, and not just, for my intuition, but for your broader well-being, but definitely for our intuition, because, it builds the faith and the inner strength to be able to trust those messages and hear them, because hearing them is partly based in self-worth. The other is our personal story. So what happened to us in childhood and as we're growing up, and the decisions that we've made about life and relationships can then affect our capacity to hear, trust, and follow our intuition. So, there's a myriad of examples, but I'll just give you a few. So perhaps a child wasn't allowed to have the full range of emotion, grief, fear, anger. Perhaps some of those emotions were suppressed in the family unit. And so therefore, as an adult, we don't have access to that emotional state as part of our inner guidance system. Anger can be like a limit, a no, a warning sign, right? Our joy can be, a guidance to move into an idea. So we want our emotional state in balance. But if we have, wounds there, it can affect our intuitive interpretation. Another example would be perfectionism. If we've developed perfectionist behavior due to, perhaps in childhood, high achieving behavior was rewarded rather than just rewards for our true authentic self, that can lead to a perfectionist controlling behavior. And in that state, we're not so in touch with our intuition or right timing of things, or disconnected from our passion in some way. So the wounds of childhood can also end up affecting our capacity. So the more we can, become into balance and do some healing work around that, the more we can, around our past, that is, the more we can come into a deeper attunement with our authentic knowing. And then the other block, and I don't cover this in my book, but I do cover it in my Intuitive Mastery program, is our Akashic history. So
can you explain about the Akashic for people that don't understand?
Yeah, sure.
So
our Akashic, well, let me step back. It's based on the assumption of the acceptance that we have multiple lifetimes. So if you don't accept that, if you're a listener not accepting that, maybe just, give me the grace. Give me the grace through these next few moments. But on the assumption that we have multiple lifetimes, but we have one soul, and we come and we go, and we come and we go, and we come and we go. So that builds a pool of wisdom, soul wisdom, and it also builds a pool of soul experience, okay? And some of those experiences haven't been that great in other lifetimes. When you look at human history, if you believe you've had multiple lifetimes, then, a lot's happened to humanity over the thousands of years. And so sometimes there are wounds there, and these wounds are in are like imprints, and all this memory and experience is stored in what's known as the Akash, or the Akashic record. And the Akashic record is a real place, but it's a multi-dimensional place, for want of a better word, where all these experiences, memories are stored of our soul experience. And so sometimes these not so great imprints can get in the way of us going into a very deep intuitive state. And so in my intuitive mastery program, I do some ceremony and some work around healing the wounds within our Akash as well. So for those people that want to go deeper into the process of embracing their intuitive life.
Yeah, because it's all about healing the wounds now, so we're not carrying them forward, and we're not carrying them forward, or our families are not, children and grandchildren are not all carrying these things forward, isn't it? So it's like now more than ever, things are coming up for us to clear, to work through, day by day, moment by moment, something will come up. And I mean, like many years ago, going way back, about 10 past lives now, I was at a point where I was frozen in solid inside and couldn't cry. And like through over the time and years and what have you, I've gone from being like an iceberg inside to somebody that I could be happily doing something, and all of something triggers, and whoop, it comes, and I can't stop it, but it's instant. So I've gone from one extreme to the other, but I know I'm sort of really in touch with my emotions and feelings and senses and what have you, that I suppose it's like we're fine-tuning ourselves all the time, aren't we?
Well, we are. And just like you mentioned, I can't remember where you were driving back from, but you were crying. Where were you driving back from?
Oh, leaving St. Michael's Mount.
Oh, yeah, right.
That part of Cornwall.
Yeah, power centre. And it's like, well, our Akashic record's like that. It speaks through emotional states. It speaks through our senses. So like you were saying, your intuitive feeling that you've had, you had previous connection there, perhaps other life connection there, and you had a soul memory, and it comes through with loving grief. Grief, crying isn't always grief. It can also be love, right? So I had that feeling that was sort of like a loving memory of previous connection there. So, yeah. And the other thing that came to mind was, if people, because you'd asked me about how do people learn to trust that nuance of their intuition when it speaks to them. And one of the ways that I talk about right through my book is about small, safe steps. Like if you feel like maybe it's an intuition, just take a little step and press into the idea, and in that way, when you take small, safe steps, it starts to build relationship with your intuition. You find out, was that my intuition or not? Was that right timing or not? And if, you can't get it wrong. If you discover it was not your intuition, but rather something else, then you learnt that distinction along the way.
Yeah, because I know some people say, when things happen to them, and I know somebody once said when something awful happened, and they said, well, where were the angels? Where were they there for me when that happened? But which I can understand, like there's different things that happen for people, and they just do not understand what's going on, and they just don't resonate with what's happening. And like it's different things that's happened to me, and I think, well, why did this happen, or where was the help and support for me? But if I was looking down at myself from above, if you like, then you can see on some level you're acting out or playing out a story, you're moving through stuff. But even though at the time you think, well, there was no support for me, nobody was at, you can go into that. And I can understand that when I talk to people when they say, well, there was nobody there for me. So how would you sort of turn that around a little when people, because, you know, there's all sorts of things going on for people now, and people saying, well, this isn't right. How is this happening? What sort of would you say?
Well, first of all, our angels aren't going to save us from rescue us from our soul journey, right? We just like you said, sometimes there's important lessons that we need to integrate to evolve our consciousness. Our angels are with us 24/7, whether we're aware of it or not. You know, I think of them as my support team. Like, we're in the theatre of life here. You're the key player. You're the key actor here, and you have an entourage. And they have overview of your life. They know what you've come here to achieve. And so their role is to support and guide you through your life journey. But they can also see where you're going to be having an important life evolutionary lesson that you need to step through in your human form, right? And so they're not going to interfere with that because it's part of your evolutionary process. But so does that answer your question? Yeah. And so, but we can build relationship with them. And I've actually got a special offer for your listeners or those that watch on the replay. I've written an ebook or an e-guide on how to connect with your angels. And if people go to my website and fill out the form there, okay, this is a course. Thank you, Jeffrey. This is so what I'm offering is the ebook, so you can go online and grab that. And it's all tips and tricks about how to connect with your angels and how to build a relationship with them. And then I'm also offering in November this course, this afternoon program called Deepen the Relationship with Your Angels. So this program is going to be taking that relationship deeper, how to build that aware connection with our angels, how to talk to them in a way that you be in receipt of their loving guidance. Also, our angels now have, as we're evolving consciousness on the planet, they're having more of the capacity to step in and deliver healing grace into our life. So how do we position ourselves to be in receipt of their healing energy? So I'll be going deeper into that in this program. So if you put your name in the form on my website, you'll get the free ebook. You'll get a link to this flyer here, and also you'll get on my mailing list to let you know of future programs, because I know this program's not going to work for the UK listeners, but I will do an evening one at some time, which will be your morning, so I can keep you in touch with that. And also you'll receive information about my intuitive mastery program and the link to my book. So with Amazon, you can only put a link for one country in there. So the link there is the Australian link. But if you're in the UK, you'll just have to search for my book on UK Amazon. For some reason, they've set it up that every country has its individual search engine. I'm not sure what the mentality of that is.
It might be something to do with the postage charges, because I know if I asked you to send me a book, I don't know, it cost you anything up to $20 to send something. So sometimes it's cheaper not to have it than try and get it over here somewhere.
That could be exactly it. So the e-guide will help people get some insight on how to connect with their angels. And really, you'll see there it starts again with our intent. So this time we're intending to connect with angelic helpers. I call them angels. Some people call them guides or have other names. The beings of light that are there, our entourage, to guide our life, help us be on track and on purpose. But we're in a free will universe, as you know, Andrena, here on this planet. It's a planet of free choice, and our angels cannot step in if we're in lesson here, an important lesson. So that's part of that answer to your question here. And it's also the reason why we need to ask for their help, because they can't step in unless by free will and by free choice we've invited them to. I used to have a connection with a dog trainer for a dog I had 25 years ago. He's a funny guy, and I was telling him about the angels, and he would say that the angels are on the gin rummy table playing cards over the sidelines here until we ask to connect with them, and then they get off the table and they can get to work. So and the other clue is about connecting in our heart, of course, but that's in that e-guide. It's available for everybody.
So
hang on a sec. I remember Anthony Williams. Have you read his Medical Medium?
No.
All right.
What did he have to say?
He's got a chapter of relating to talking to your healing angels, and he he says, listen, Archangel Michael and Archangel Gabriel, the phone's off the hook. You realise that? The phone's off the hook. But in triage, there's hundreds of angels, healing angels, waiting to come and help you and assist you. All you got to do is ask. I thought that was so funny at the time.
Yeah. And people can go a whole lifetime without even knowing that. So, it's important.
So I think like going back to gratitude, I mean, when I get up, I do sort of thank you for a good night's sleep, thank you for that I've got a roof over my head, and thank you for this and thank you for that. And then when I go to sleep or settling down for the night, then I think of the day and I think, thank you that I had this happened and I met this person, and thank you that I did this, and thank you I did that. So, and then like half the time I don't know how far I got because I've fallen asleep, but that's always a good thing to just start off, or even just writing down 10 things every day that you're thankful for. I've sort of gone through different things with people talking about, and they say, well, just for example, you've got your son or your daughter, just write down 10 things that you love about that person. Get yourself in it, or if you've got a dog, or get yourself in that frame of mind where you're giving gratitude and thanks. So you're putting out a higher vibe to the universe that you're thankful for things, rather than, you might be moaning, well, we're all human. We all have a moan and a groan. It's part of life's journey. But the more we can give thanks and have acceptance, and every day's a new day. So it's starting off again, isn't it? Right. I give thanks for this. And then, you can go on longer, and you can get into that vibration of giving gratitude, so that you're more open to receive things coming in, like messages or intuition, much stronger.
100%, Andrena. It also being in a state of gratitude also improves enhances the confluence between our mind and our heart. And when they're working together, that is also, a powerful, creative, and intuitive force in our life. Our heart, and there's a chapter just on the energy of love, and how that's a core aspect of the intuitive process. I've got a whole chapter of that in my book. The other aspect of that, but I think intuition in its highest form, it guides us to compassionate action. Because if we're trusting it and taking that compassionate action, I believe the energy of that goes into the grids of the planet and uplifts the consciousness of humanity as a whole. I believe it's part of the evolutionary driver, or the evolutionary process of humanity. And that can be as simple as, the compassionate action of letting someone in the queue behind you, in front of you. It creates upliftment, doesn't it? You feel good, they feel good. It's a compassionate action. Or, choosing to be patient with somebody. if they're taking their time with something or they're in your way, choosing to be patient. Have you ever had someone thank you for being patient with them?
No, but just it brings me to something. I was in the supermarket with my sister and I a few days ago, and there was a lady, I think she was in a wheelchair, and she was trying to put her card in to pay, and she kept getting it wrong. So I said, would you like me to help you and just put and she just fired at me, no, thank you. And she was really, and I thought, oh my God. So I said, okay. So I stepped back, and she was, there's a queue building and she's still having a lot of trouble. And then Carol said to the cashier, how much is it for? And I'd say it was about £5. So Carol said, let me pay it for her. And anyway, well, that didn't go down very well. She was really, and then, and I thought, so we were looking at the lesson in that. And then Carol said, did you see her ankles? Her ankles were really swollen. And I said, well, she must have been in a lot of pain. And, it's a hard one, because when you're struggling and you're in pain, you don't always want people to help you. You're not functioning, but, we wanted to help her, but she didn't want the help. And, we had to step back and just honor that she didn't want help. And I mean, well, we ended up going into the next checkout, and then, they were calling in somebody else, because I think her card would have declined the amount of time she was trying to do it. But, that was a big lesson, because first of all, and I thought, oh, I'm grateful, rah, rah, rah. But then I thought, no, what's going on here? What are we witnessing, if you like,
Well, so I see a few things in there. One is your compassion to let her have her free will choice. And two is how many people witnessed compassionate action there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it goes much bigger than what you think.
Yeah.
And I cover much bigger stories in my book than the basics as well. But compassion is part of our intuitive guidance system, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's all a lesson in life, isn't it? Every day there's something that you're looking at or you're dealing with, or, but like I say, every day's a new day, which is Jeff's phrase, isn't it? Always say that, you start off, well, today's a new day. What magic and miracles can I create today? So...
Well, I emphasize every day is a new day, because you don't bring in the past into your new day. And every minute's a new minute, and every phone call is a new minute, because the phone call you might have had, like I went to a funeral yesterday for a lady who set up a spiritual church in West Australia, who came over to Queensland, and used to come over to my place with her sister just to get readings and so forth. And I was all set to go, and then I get a phone call, a business phone call, and I'm thinking, I need to get going to this funeral. And then I'm thinking, do you mind if I ring you back at 2:00? I've just got to go to a funeral for a friend. Oh, look, I'm really, really sorry. Sorry. I said, no problem. I just, I'll catch you up at 2:00. So I did ring back at 2:00. And sometimes, if you don't speak up and explain, look, I'm sorry I have to cut the phone call short, but I will ring you back. The inference is that when you do ring back, that to me is a very transparent and ethical person that you're dealing with. Being good with your word. Yeah. And you know what it's like when you take a phone call and you've got someone who's an Indian.
God. Yeah. Call center.
And they're ringing up and they're telling you, this is your Telstra, we're going to look at your phone, your computer and all that stuff. And you think, oh my God, here we go, another con. And you got those thoughts and you hang up on them. The next phone call is someone who's actually genuine, and your mind is still with the Indian, and you're thinking, oh my God, we need to send in the cavalry here, It's about changing your thought pattern for that new phone call. So that's why I say every phone call is a new phone call, so let it go. So you're dealing in the now. Anyway, that's me. Carry on, girls. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, is there anything else you'd like to share, Diana, that we haven't covered today?
I think we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
I think so.
One way or another.
Yeah, it's all about sharing, caring, and networking.
Pardon?
It's all about sharing, caring, and networking.
Yes.
Hey, do you have a chapter in there about relationships?
No.
Okay.
Only I covered that by default. One of the chapters. So the chapters would be. There's the first chapter is about intention, intuition, and logic, which I spoke about. There's a chapter about our emotional life, which does touch on relationships. There's another chapter that talks about intuition versus fantasy, and how we discern, how we can discern between what's intuition and what's just our desire. And that comes down to, our history and what's the belief systems that we have established as a result of our personal story. And then that can affect, the interpretation of our intuition. So I touch on it a little bit there, but not specifically, no.
The only reason I brought it up is that most girls go and see a clairvoyant, medium, fortune teller. Essentially, they're going to find out, well, the three questions are who's getting hatched, who's getting matched, and who's getting dispatched. And it sort of comes back to the relationships. And, and the ladies will always say, is there a new job for me? Is there a new relationship coming in my life? Am I shifting home? Or, those are all the things that a female's looking for in terms of security. So,
well, intuition's a little bit different from being psychic. So and psychics are different from mediums. Like a medium is connecting you with a passed over loved one. That's what a medium does. A psychic is tuning into your field and looking at the potentials. There's only ever potentials there, right? There's nothing set in stone because we're a free will universe and we're making choices all the time, and we can go off on a new trajectory based on our day-to-day choices. But there's greater potentials in the field, and your psychic's picking up on the greater potentials that are there as to the possibilities of your creations going forward. With your intuition, you're tuning in a moment-to-moment basis on what, and in conjunction with your angelic helpers, what is the next best choice and step for me, and asking for guidance that's coming from within your own resources, within your own creative energy. And also, as I say, sometimes with the support of guidance with your angels. So it's a different process. That's how I see those three things sort of fitting together.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And so, I think that's it.
Brilliant. Well, I think I've asked you all the questions, and for people that, are sort of, I think like when they talk about the awakening path, it's like the awakening path is your inner journey to awakening up to yourself, isn't it? That's how I see it. People say, oh, they're waking up, or they're, and it's like, oh, they suddenly realize what's going on, all the different scams and God knows what else, waking up to that. But I think is your inner guidance system that is your inner journey, this awakening you up to your path.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you're touching on it there, but particularly since the advent of COVID, we're all exposed to so many narratives right now. It can be confusing, and there's increased lines of communication from all sources going on, that it's even more important now than ever to be in tune with our own personal truth, to have some level of discernment of what's true for you as an individual. So encourage people, read my book. And if you're so inspired to go deeper, you could look at my Intuitive Mastery program. And if you would like to have a deeper relationship with your angelic helpers, there's my Deepen Your Relationship with Your Angels program coming up on the 4th of November. I'd love to have you join me. And to connect in with that, it's just either to message me or email me, and I can welcome you into that program. We'll give you more information about it.
Fantastic. I saw a couple of things flash up, but I don't know, was there any questions or remarks that we need to go back over before we finish? Right, Carol. Hi, Lovelace. I've just come up with a new description. Every time I hear you saying intuition, it sounds to me like intuition. I love it.
I love it. I've never thought of that. I might steal that.
Yeah, I like that, Carol. Well done. Thank you. Anything? Is that it today?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Diana. It's been an absolute delight and pleasure. And talking about subjects I love and all the angels and what have you. So, so lots of information for people to look up and get your free e-guide and do your workshop. November the 4th was it? So, and I'll post the replay. So if anybody wants to listen to it later. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, Jeffrey. And thank you, Diana. Same time, same place next week.
Okay. Love you.
Thank you.